scale economy to be achieved, and of course, even achieving it at lower volumes. So then the last thing that I think is in our favor, still talking about the technical case, is that a lot of innovation that we're beginning to see in the biotech area is coming from small labs of 10, 15 people who broke out either from a university or from a big pharmaceutical company. And we've seen examples, for instance, in the way vaccines for COVID has been developed. Let's take AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca was developed by a team in Oxford University. The team in Oxford handed it over to AstraZeneca, the pharmaceutical development. Development basically means pilot production, and all the documentation, and they're huge, all the documentation required for
teacher. Are you professori? Yes.
So much nice.
Good afternoon, the birthday girl.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Yeah,
Good afternoon.
congratulations to you, my sister.
Thank you
Many
very
happy returns
much.
of today.
Thank you.
So we have
Thank you.
something that is stealing you away from the guests.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So we are going to be taking off now. It's going to be a dot of 3. All our guest speakers are already in the house. And I think the best we can do is to make sure that we take advantage of the time. As more people are joining us, we're able to receive them right on this page, point blank, laying it bare. I want to especially welcome everybody online this afternoon on Pharmacist Affairs Engagement Point Blank. And let me also mention to us that Point Blank is a program of Pharmacist Affairs. And we have about 7 administrators who are putting this together. And I want to use this opportunity to appreciate every member of the board of administrators of Pharmacist Affairs who have been relentless in ensuring we have this program every month. We have done 3 consecutive months back to back, and it has been judged highly successful. I want to appreciate every member of the Board of Administrators of Pharmacist Affairs. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pharmacist Abiodun Ajibade. I'm the Chairman, Board of Administrators of Pharmacist Affairs, and it's my pleasure to welcome you again to our monthly engagement Point Blank, laying it bare. This is a program of the platform Pharmacist Affairs to discuss on topical issues that we believe are germane for the advancement of our practice pharmacy in Nigeria. And every time we gather, we have opportunity of rubbing minds with great minds and experts in the industry whose experience and by virtue of their position in the pharmacy practice, they are able to share their personal opinion on what is going around us and how we can take our practice to the next level. And I want to tell you that this is the 3rd edition back to back, and it has been found highly successful. And we want to use the opportunity to also give thanks to all our guest speakers who have been part of this engagement since it started in February. Today, we are here again to discuss on the topic vaccine production in Nigeria. And just like we are aware, the current situation we have found ourselves as a nation, the pandemic situation we have found ourselves in the world, where pharmaceutical intervention is in the forefront. We as pharmacists, we must continually increase the tempo of our commitment and involvement so that our position in the practice and the healthcare sector will not be rubbished. We are quite aware of the current politics of vaccine availability globally. And we know that by virtue of what is going on, Africa may be on their way out because of the total number of vaccines that are being going with the COVID-19 vaccination. Just barely 1% is being earmarked for the whole of Africa as a continent, which means you and I, we are at a very big disadvantage of survival. And that is why we cannot keep quiet. And that is why we will continuously engage and speak. And every of our discussion, every of our contributions will actually be heard in high places where decision will be taken. I want to also tell us this afternoon that every time we gather like this, whatever is the outcome of our discussion, we come up with a communique which we always release and we present them to our leaders in the profession, which are the people who are representing us everywhere, to also use it as part of the opinions of other people in the society, so that as they are taking their brilliant steps in ensuring that pharmacy is well positioned, those opinions too will also be very important in their pursuit. Let me also appreciate everybody who had kept date with Pharmacist Affairs, especially on this program, point blank. Because if you are not there, there's nothing we can be doing here. And we want to appreciate your support, your contributions. Every time you come up with a topic, you always get back to us, give us your own opinion, your input. And this has continuously helped to reposition and to ensure that this particular program is growing from one level to another. So I want to appreciate all of us. Also, this afternoon, Ramadan afternoon, I want to also especially greet all of our Muslim colleagues who are right now fasting. I wish you Ramadan Kareem, a very good fasting period. And I pray all you are looking unto God for this season, Almighty God will answer every one of your requests. And let me also say that vaccine production in Nigeria, many of us may not even know that we are producing vaccine in Nigeria before. This afternoon, we have got a lot of experts who are going to put a very good position on the vaccine production in Nigeria and where we are today in Nigeria. And I want to also mention that by virtue of our engagement today, many things that we don't know are going to be brought to know. Let me quickly appreciate and recognize all of us that are right now on the platform right now. Let me appreciate Pharmacist Everett Okeapo, that's the acting COO of Vaccine Nigeria Limited. You are welcome to the platform tonight, this afternoon. Our special welcome to Dr. Monica Imujeze, our Director, Registration and Regulatory Affairs, NAFDAC. You are most welcome. I'm also having here the President, Industrial Pharmacies Section of FIP, Pharmacist Shola Sholari. You are most welcome. Let me also welcome a few of us that are here, not minding whoever, everybody here. We have, Ayana Cho Edits. You are welcome. Musba Mustafa, Sunday, Ali Oko, Ugu Christopher, Fuluke Akediroye. You are welcome, ma. Oden Yemi, Isaac Olatunde, Olagojumu Iwa, Olajide Elemede Shason Karim, Adeola Henry, Ayene Chidi Okweze. Our chairman, PSN River State, Chima, you are most welcome. Pharmacist Ernest Okafor, we welcome you. Pharmacist Exponent, Dr. Mag. My dear sister, Pharmacist, most welcome. Pharmacist Sola Epefan, we welcome you to this program this afternoon. Marcos Neyi Oyeyipo, and many more of us that I may not be able to mention our names right now because of time. Everybody are equally important. Everybody are wonderfully welcome. And I believe strongly every of our contributions this afternoon will go a long way to also add voice to what is going on right now on the continent, Africa, and the global space, the world. So let me welcome every one of us right now, and as we go to the next agenda, which is introducing the guest speakers. Pharmacist Durowaye, are you in the house?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, we are going to be introducing the guest speakers, the panelists one by one. And while we are trying to get that done, let me just take 2 minutes of our time to come back at this time. We are going to be coming on with an introduction of our guests. Pharmacist Michael Drew, why are you in the house?
Around, I'm here.
Oh, you are most welcome, Pharmacist Michael Drew. So you can put your voice up a little more, and so that we can hear you better. So we'll over to you, introduce our guests as we receive them this afternoon on Point Blank. Thank you very much.
There.
Okay,
let us see.
Yes, can you speak out?
Everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Please, if you're not presenting, please could you just mute your mic? There's a lot of interference on the background so that people can hear clearly what you're saying.
Okay, so
thank you.
Can we all, I'm going to mute all, so we only give people that will speak the opportunity of their mic being released to them.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, you can mute
thank
yourself.
you. I'm on. So introducing first, Pharmacist Shola Sholari. He has a brief profile which I want to read out to us. He was born on the 8th of February 1965 He trained as a pharmacist at the Obafemi Awolowo University, OAU, between 1983 and 1986, and remained with the university for another year for his internship. From there, he finished, went for service, and then he also obtained, in the process of time, an MBA from IESE, the Institute of Graduate Management Education in Barcelona, Spain. His career in the industry started in 1989 with Glaxo Nigeria Limited as a medical representative. He retired 10 years later in 1999 after a shot in the production, product development, logistics, and site services. In 2001, he led a former team of investors to acquire the assets of a pharmaceutical company in liquidation to form a company known as Food and Pharma Nigeria Limited. He was the chief executive officer of the company for 4 years. Presently, he is the founder and managing partner of Sawanti Consulting Limited, which is Nigeria's largest regulatory affairs consultancy with operations in Kenya and Cote d'Ivoire. Pharmacist Shola, as a student, was a public relations officer of the OAU local chapter of PANS and was the national chairman of the past national chairman of the Nigerian Association of Industrial Pharmacists, NAIP, between 2003 and 2005. He was also named an eminent personality of the association in 2006. He's a member of the FIP for over 10 years. He has served for 7 years as the vice president of the industrial pharmacy section of the FIP in that period. He rolled out the quarterly webinars for this section, and which has been adopted by many other sections of the FIP. He's the author of the book, The Startup Entrepreneur, an emerging market experience, and an avid lover of water sports. He is a keen sailor as a member of the Lagos Yacht Club, and he has been elected as president of the industrial pharmacy section of the FIP. He is married and with children. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the presentations for today, Pharmacist Shola Sholari. You're welcome, sir. Okay, Pharmacist Ajibade, please could you take the second presentation and welcoming of the next guest speaker.
Thank you very much, Pharmacist Druwaye. I will right now go to introduce the second speaker, and the person tonight is Dr. Monica Imunjize. Want to talk? You can release your connect your camera, Dr. Imunjize. We want to spotlight you right now for everyone to see. Dr. Imunjize is currently the Director of Registration and Regulatory Affairs of NAFDAC. She has coordinated several national and international programs to support strengthening regulatory capacity within the agency and worked on several projects to institute regulatory reform. A graduate of the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria with a Bachelor of Pharmacy in 1986, and also a Doctor of Pharmacy PharmD from Mesa University, Atlanta, Georgia, and a Master of Science in Biotechnology, Innovation, and Regulatory Science from Purdue University, USA. Our experience spans different areas of practice, with experience in quality management system, QMS, clinical trial regulation, good manufacturing practice, GMP, biotechnology, and regulatory affairs. She currently serves as a member of the Expert Scientific Advisory Committee, ISAC, Medicines for Malaria Ventures, and was a member of the tax team for the creation of the African Medicines Agency, AMA. She is NAFDAC representative at the United States Pharmacopoeia as convention observer and served as focal person for the Economic Community of West Africa States Medicines Regulatory Harmonization for NAFDAC, and is the focal person for dossier assessment in the collaborative procedure for registration of WHO pre-qualified pharmaceutical products. Dr. Immunization is a fellow of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, and she's happily married with children. Let us welcome our dear Dr. Monica Immunization to the platform tonight. Let us give her a round of applause to welcome her tonight, this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
To Dr. Pharmacist Druwaye. Yeah, you are most welcome. So I go to Pharmacist Druwaye to introduce the third speaker, that is Pharmacist Everest Okeapo. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. So I'll be taking an introduction for the third and final speaker for today, person of Pharmacist Everest Okeapo. Pharmacist Okeapo holds a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, in which he obtained in 2004. He's also pursuing a Master in Business Administration from the University of Ibadan School of Business. He started his career with M&B, May and Baker, in 2005 as an intern pharmacist, and he has held several positions in the company, including Business Development Manager, Specialist Business Manager for the North, where he led the execution of the company's strategic vision in the 18 northern states of Nigeria. In the course of his career, he has joined a number of international professional associations and attended several overseas trainings, programs, and workshops. Pharmacist Everest Okeapo was appointed the product manager for BVNL in August 2017, and currently he serves as the acting Chief Operating Officer to the company. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming this afternoon Pharmacist Everest Okeapo to the program. You're most welcome, sir. Okay, Pharmacist Ajibade, please over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. We want to welcome Pharmacist Everest Okeapo and every other guest speakers we have invited to this afternoon to rub mind with us on this particular engagement. I want to put on record that you have supported us tremendously, because immediately we got in touch with you all about our intention to share, to have conversation around vaccine production in Nigeria. You threw your door open to us and you have supported us this far. And no doubt you are part of the first line of people that also appear in the room this afternoon. I want to give a big applause to you all. You are most welcome. Right now, we are going to be going to the cocoa of the matter, which is the situation of vaccine in Nigeria. This afternoon, I have Pharmacist Ladapo. I don't know whether he's in the house right now. Pharmacist Richard Ladapo is going to be the one anchoring that session, and is the one that will be talking to us about the current situation of vaccine in Nigeria. And let it be on record that Nigeria was sometime in the past manufacturing vaccines. And I want to also mention that in that time, between 1940 and 1950, we were producing vaccine in Nigeria. Polio vaccine, yellow fever vaccine, all those vaccines were things that were going on in a laboratory in Yaba in Nigeria. But somehow, after a long while, due to different government change, there was a need for that lab to stop working. And somehow, governments took some position. And anyhow, we don't know what is position of vaccine production is like right now in Nigeria. So I want to welcome Mr. Ladapo, Pharmacist Ladapo, to take on this. If you're in the house, Pharmacist Ladapo, can you take on this discussion right now? It is your turn to pick up this discussion. So Pharmacist Ladapo, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, you are most welcome, Pharmacist Ladapo.
Yeah, once again, I welcome you to this afternoon's program. We're here to talk about our Nigeria's position on manufacturing or production of vaccines generally, with COVID-19 vaccine in particular. We have our panelists, I'm sure they have been introduced. I want to give us a background of Nigerian situation and the history of our own steps in getting vaccines available for the populace. Just give me a minute. Yeah. Now, vaccine manufacturing in Nigeria is not a new concept. As a matter of fact, the Federal Vaccine Production Laboratory, which is in Yaba, was created from the Rockefeller Yellow Fever Laboratory. This was established in 1925. In the early 1930s, the laboratory started producing smallpox vaccine in sheep. This laboratory contributed enormously towards the total eradication of smallpox in West Africa. Thereafter, the production of anti-rabies vaccine was started in 1948, and the vaccine was produced in sheep brain using the sample methodology. As at 1987, the laboratory produced an average of 25,000 doses of anti-rabies vaccine for human use annually. The method of production ensures complete inactivation of virus using phenol. By the time it was in 1952, the production of yellow fever vaccine started. And by 1956, the local vaccine was approved by the World Health Organization. As at 1987, the annual production capacity was about 1.2 million doses, although the actual annual average production level between 1976 and 1986 was 120,000 doses per year. Such low level of production was caused by several factors. However, production of 500,000 doses was attained in the year 1987 just by the introduction of an effective managerial system. Plan to include yellow fever vaccines in the expanded program for immunization was to necessitate an annual requirement of 5 to 6 million doses, because at that time, Nigeria's annual birth rate was 4.5 million infants. To ensure the supply of such large quantities of yellow fever vaccine on a continuous basis, it is imperative that the country produces this vaccine in sufficient quantities to meet at least its own domestic requirements. This consideration led to the commitment of the Federal Ministry of Health to make investments to modernize and strengthen the yellow fever vaccine facilities at Yaba as a result of recommendations from the World Health Organization experts. This translated into a project with a budget of 789,100 Canadian dollars. And the project actually have about 3 objectives. The first was to promote the modernization and the strengthening of yellow fever vaccine laboratory facility at Yaba in Lagos, as I said earlier. The second was to promote the adoption in all steps of production and quality control of good manufacturing practices, and to ensure their compliance with the World Health Organization requirements. The third was to promote the brigade of facility vaccine production laboratory to manufacture increased quantities and to improve the quality of the vaccine with the introduction of thermostable formulation. This vaccine production center, you might come to know, was active for just about 6 decades, between 1940, when it was commissioned, and 1991. And it was producing large quantities of vaccines against smallpox, rabies, yellow fever for not only Nigeria, but neighboring countries like Cameroon, Central Africa, and a few other countries in Africa. It was closed in 1991 by the federal government because they said they wanted to reactivate and upgrade the facility. At a press conference, the Minister of Health at the time, Professor Isaac Adewale, said after a Federal Executive Council meeting that the government had decided to set up a joint venture company with May and Baker, a pharmaceutical company in Nigeria, to commence local production of vaccine at the Yaba facility. The minister said the country was set to restart producing local vaccines after it had stopped in 1991 in collaboration with the pharmaceutical giants. Professor Adewale said Mozambique was to assist in production of local vaccines to improve immunization routines and reduce dependency on international donors. According to him, the agreement proposed to create a company called BioVaccines Limited, which will be jointly owned by the federal government and Mozambique PLC at 49% and 51% equity participation, respectively. The center was expected to produce many of the basic vaccines that we need. And he said we have considered vaccines as a security issue. It's not only health, but we need to guarantee the security of all Nigerians, particularly our children. And so with this agreement, we're able to produce these common vaccines and they are necessary. We'll be able to put on board the minister them to Nigeria. The minister said. The company was set up, and now I want us to see what our current situation is. I just gave us a background and history. Nigeria is currently the most populous country in Africa. She has the third largest birth cohort in the world. Nigeria is projected to become the third most populous country in the world with 411 million people by 2050. Nigeria is at crossroads today when it comes to immunization. We have the largest number of unvaccinated children in the world at 49%. That was in 2016. One of the immediate implications is that over the coming few years, the support from the Global Vaccine Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, Gavi, for funding may totally stop. With the projected improvement in Nigeria's economy, we will surpass the criteria set by Gavi for access to free supplies. From the estimates from the Federal Ministry of Health, the annual requirement to sustain the immunization program in Nigeria will be around $300 million US. We have a contemporary immunization program in Nigeria, which includes basic vaccines such as PCV, hepatitis B, measles, yellow fever, tetanus toxoid, and others in our expanded immunization program. In January 2021, the federal government announced a 10 billion naira, that's about $25.3 million US fund to support domestic vaccine production to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. At the briefing by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja, the Minister of Health, Dr. Osagi Ehanire, revealed that the Ministry of Finance had released a sum to support efforts aimed at developing an indigenous COVID-19 vaccine. Although the minister said the government, in collaboration with recognized institutions, was already exploring options for obtaining license for the local production of vaccines, there were no critical information, definite work plan, or detailed breakdown about how Nigerian plans to go about it. You recall from my earlier discourse that the government announced 3 years to reactivate the defunct federal vaccine production laboratory in Yaba. And the company that was set up, that's the joint venture partnership known as BioVaccine, has been floated to commence the local production of vaccines at the Yaba facility. The plan that the BioVaccines Nigeria Limited and federal government collaborate through the Federal Ministry of Health and the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency to ensure that that vaccine laboratory is resuscitated for the production of safe and affordable vaccines for Nigeria and beyond. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what has happened since the announcement of plans and the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding to kickstart the local vaccine production through this joint venture. Data from the World Health Organization shows that Africa represents 14% of the global population, but has less than 0.1% of the world's vaccine production. Certainly, Africa needs to consider self-sufficiency in vaccine production, and Nigeria is well positioned to spearhead this revolution. No doubt, the COVID-19 pandemic has rekindled the attention towards the need to reassess domestic production capabilities of vaccines, among other healthcare commodities, in the bid to promote self-sufficiency. So, having our current state, I believe that our panelists will do justice to this subject. I would like to invite the presidents of the industrial aspect of the pharmaceutical of FIP, Dr. Shola Sholari, to give us the global perspective and with his rich knowledge of the pharmaceutical space in the world, what Nigeria can do and what is applicable to us in our drive to produce vaccines locally, not just for Nigeria, but for other countries in Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard. And first, I want to congratulate all of you, Mr. Adrojaye, Mr. Ajibade, and everyone involved in putting this together. It's a very good initiative. And one step at a time, one Zoom meeting at a time, we will solve Nigeria's problem. I also want to specially, please permit me to do this, recognize Mr. Niyeyepo. He mentored me in the pharmaceutical industry, my first boss at Glaxo Nigeria Limited. Oga, I greet you, sir, and all of you, wherever you are, that have hooked up. I want to appreciate all of you. I will, my presentation will be in 4 parts, okay? First, I'll try and answer the question, why should we manufacture locally, okay? Even though it appears Richard has spoken quite a lot about that. I also try to start answering those questions by first making a commercial case, then secondly, a technical or technological case, and lastly, and most importantly, a geopolitical case. All these things will fall in place, and I please beseech you all to roll with me. So the question, why should we even bother to manufacture vaccines locally? After all, we've survived for about 30 years without local production. We're getting vaccines at, if not subsidized, practically free in certain instances from Gavi, the alliance we belong to for vaccine and immunization. So the question is, why should we bother? Richard has mentioned the case of national pride, okay? I think our position in the world, it appears, puts us in a position, in a situation where we need to spearhead the emancipation, please permit the use of that word, of the Black race. There are 200 million of us, the largest Black nation on earth, the largest country in Africa. So it is a thing of pride for us to say yes, for this race. There is a country somewhere that is doing something as sophisticated as vaccine manufacture. But it also goes beyond that. The reality is that there are diseases that are peculiar to Africa, okay? Or that are predominantly, manifest in Africans. First, let's talk about infections. Ebola, by and large, is an African disease. Monkeypox, I don't know if it's been ever reported anywhere else other than Nigeria and some adjoining countries. Lassa fever, we have frequent outbreaks, periodic outbreaks every year. At some point, the world will think, look, let Africans take care of themselves. We have other things to worry about. And COVID has shown that. I mean, so basically, in knowledge of biologics or manufacturing biologics or vaccines specifically, developing it locally will make us able to take on these challenges and develop vaccines for diseases that are noticed only among Africans. And I'm still not talking about cancers anyway. Cancers like prostate cancer is predominantly found in Africans, and a lot of cancers are beginning to be susceptible, or they are being brought into the therapy space of biologics. So that makes it compelling that we should develop local capacity to make vaccines. Beyond the fact that you know, there are diseases that are peculiar to Africans, there are also mutant strains of existing diseases. All of us will remember, I think 3 or 4 years ago, that we experienced very terrible mortalities with meningitis. Okay, it wasn't because we didn't have a stock of vaccines for it, but the new strains that showed up that year, you know, couldn't be handled by the vaccines we had in stock, and it took us time to react, and and we lost a lot of our children because of that. Lastly, the reason why I think we should focus on local manufacture is just the economics of it. You know, it will help our balance of payment problem, the situation. I checked about last week. The figure I had for the total expenditure on vaccine last year was about over $400 million. If we don't have to, you know, pay that out to third parties, we can retain it within the country and to help our balance of payments. Beyond the fact that it will help our employment. Vaccine is a very, very middle-level manpower intensive endeavor. And you understand that the kind of manpower we're talking about will be graduates of the basic sciences, microbiology, biochemistry, botany, zoology, chemistry, and the rest of it. And Nigeria is producing them in huge numbers. So it will help that if we domicile the manufacture of vaccines locally, and you know, that will help our employment situation. So I haven't made the case that, look, everything points to the fact that you know, beyond profits or economics, that we should manufacture these vaccines locally. Let us look at the commercial case for it. And it's important we look at the commercial case because the vaccine business, if I can call it that, is a fairly peculiar one, and is not, it doesn't fit into the same model as small molecules, okay? With small molecules, you can produce, if your molecule has, if your product has a 4-year life, you can produce to stock for 4 years, and you can be sure that in the next 4 years, the products can be used. It's not the same for vaccine. You can produce vaccine of good quality, and the following year, you have mutation that renders the vaccine useless, and you have to throw out everything, okay? You can produce vaccine and keep it, and for some diseases, there is no outbreak. Take, for instance, Ebola. Supposing a private company makes vaccines for Ebola, let's say for Nigeria, for instance, and let's say it has a life of
Hello, Mr. Speaker, you're muted. Unmute yourself so that we can hear.
Have I been muted all along? I don't think so.
Not all along, but
okay.
just not too long ago.
Okay, I'm sure I was muted by the host. Okay, sorry about that. So I was making the point that the vaccine business is not, doesn't follow the same dynamics as the small molecules business. For a small molecule, a paracetamol, if it has a life of a shelf life of 4 years, you can produce the product. I mean, you can produce enough products for 4 years and be sure that for the next 4 years, you can sell it and it will work. For vaccines, it doesn't always work that way. Number one, you can produce vaccines today using specific antigens, and the following year, the antigens will have changed through mutation. So that means the batch of vaccines you have to throw away. There is no other thing to do with it. Another possibility is vaccines that are just for infrequent outbreak of diseases. Let's say Ebola. You produce vaccines in the hope that Ebola will break out, so that there will be a large use of it. Supposing it doesn't, what will happen is after the life of that product, you have to destroy them. And of course, Mr. Okeapu will tell us ultimately that vaccine manufacturing is a very, very delicate process, and there are so many ways to get it wrong. And a lot of times, when laboratories are doing, 90% run rates, that's 9 out of every 10 batches they do, they're able to, get it to the end. They're doing very, very well. A lot of laboratories throw out batches because one thing or the other goes wrong. So, the summary of what I'm trying to say is that the vaccine business requires different kind of assurances, okay? And it is only a government that can provide that. And a government, because of course we understand what vaccines are used for, for public health purposes, to prevent outbreaks, and you don't. I mean, even if people are poor, they will still need to have vaccines administered. So it's government that can give those kind of assurances, and also the fact that there are a lot of the buyers in the vaccine business are very, very powerful. You're either talking to governments or talking to multilateral agencies like the United Nations or Gavi or PAHO, and they negotiate very hard. Because of that, margins are low, and like I mentioned earlier, the risks are a lot. So it requires that we get assurances of offtake, and assurances of volume. So because of that, a vaccine business or vaccine project driver will look to government for certain things. But what makes it easy for us as Nigerians, after making all this case, is the fact that we have a large captive population. Richard was talking about 4.5 million children born annually. I think the last check I made, there are over 7 million children born annually now. And if we have to vaccinate all these people, even let's say with only polio, which requires 3 doses, that's already 21 doses of vaccines per year. And a McKinsey modeling, that I looked up just last week, revealed that for you to reach scale economy, you need about $20 million in revenue for a vaccine lab. That's for certain platforms. Mr. Okeapu might be able to bear us out when he starts talking. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that with a population of 200 million, with children about 7 million annually, this kind of volume is easy for us to make. And we're talking just about Nigeria. But when we were producing vaccines, we were supplying to Cameroon, Central African Republic, and the rest of them. So by the time we look at a market that we can reach, that is captive for us, commercially, making vaccines locally is a no-brainer, because we will easily have a captive market that can take us to break even very, very quickly. Okay, so now that takes me to the third aspect of my presentation, And that's a technical case or technological case for developing a vaccine project locally. There's massive innovation going on in the biotechnology space presently. When I started my career in the pharmaceutical industry, the top 10 selling products in the world were all small molecules. Today, out of the top 10 selling products in the world, 8 of them are large molecules or biologics, okay? While small molecules are attracting return on investment, using the US stock exchange of about 20% returns, biologics or biotechnology companies are attracting like 40% returns on investment. So it's attracting a lot of money, a lot of activity, and the innovation is massive. The innovation is not just in terms of new products, but also in terms of platforms, okay? Now, what do I mean by this? Richard mentioned that when we started vaccine production, we were using sheep brain, we were using egg yolk to incubate these viruses and subsequently take them to industrial production. Now, there are platforms where you are no longer using whole organisms. Take, for instance, the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine for COVID. They're using a novel platform called mRNA. There are a lot of DNA vaccines and the rest of it. But what point am I trying to make with this? As we are now, as the industry is, the Indians, the Chinese, the Brazilians have massive advantage in terms of knowledge, in terms of scale for the old platforms. So because of that, it might be difficult for us to compete on price. But if Nigeria looks to new technology and new platforms, we certainly will be able to compete because these new platforms are, you reach break-even at much lower volumes. Beyond that, in terms of that's in the area of innovating the drug products. But in the area of industrial production as well, there have also been innovation. Prior to now, what you had are stainless steel equipment that after every batch, you have to sterilize, do microbiology tests to be sure that the sterility is proven, and until after 7 days before you start a new batch. These days, there's what you call single-use equipment, where practically all your equipment are just plugged to each other. They are flexi bags and pipes. So you just use one for each batch. So once you finish with the batch, you just roll up the equipment and throw it away, if you can call it equipment, and throw it away and bring in another set of equipment. So you don't have to wait for microbiology proof of sterility, for 7 days before you go on to another batch. So that makes it easy for you to scale up very quickly, for you to reach break-even very quickly, and yeah, I mean, it's and of course for you to also set up very, very quickly. So the last point about the technology is that a lot of the innovation we're seeing in biotechnology these days is being done by small companies, okay? A 10-man team working in a lab in a small city somewhere and innovating very new products that are interesting. Why this is important is that it is easy for Nigeria as a country or for somebody promoting a project in Nigeria to meet up with these small companies and ask to collaborate with them. And they would gladly accept to collaborate because they're small. Their power to negotiate is not as huge, for instance, as that of a Pfizer or a Novartis. So the summary is that the technology space for biotechnology is also in favor of us plugging in at this time and setting up very, very quickly. The most exciting one, and is a fleeting opportunity, and I hope we'll take charge of it very quickly, is geopolitics. Why do I say geopolitics? I mean, I mentioned earlier that what will assure any promoter of a vaccine project presently is assured offtake, so that when the product is produced, there's somebody somewhere that will, in fact, often they pay ahead of time for it and encourage you to go ahead and produce. So that eliminates the risk that, look, if anything happens, if anything goes wrong, the loss won't be borne by the promoter and they won't be driven out of the market. So now the biggest vaccine manufacturer, buyers, aside from the individual countries in the West, in the low and medium income countries, will be Gavi, Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, will be PAHO. PAHO is Pan-American Health Organization. It's an association of South American companies, South American countries that have come together to negotiate to buy. And of course, the UN agencies are also procure in large quantities for specific programs. The exciting thing, and now I'm coming to that, if, for instance, we want to approach Gavi to negotiate that, look, come and serve as an off-taker with all the disadvantages that will come, that will carry along. The chairman of Gavi, possibly until recently, is somebody called Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She'll be very accessible, she will listen to us, and she'll be very sympathetic to us as a country and as Nigerians. The second big buyer, like I mentioned, are the United Nations agencies, WHO, UNICEF, and the rest of them. Do you know who the Deputy United Nations Secretary General is? Somebody called Amina Mohammed. She's a Nigerian. She was in our cabinet when Goodluck Jonathan was there. And it would be easy for us to reach her and say, look, we want these assurances and, please, we need help, okay? The other things that are beginning to come together that we can also take advantage of is the African Continental Free Trade Area. Of course, because we belong here and we belong to Africa, if we produce, we can easily talk to our fellow Africans and look, before you listen to the Indians or the Chinese, you have to talk to us and tell us why you won't take ours, Another exciting thing happening at the level of, at the continental level is the African Medicine Agency that is coming up, which is turning Africa to just one regulatory jurisdiction. What this does is that, one of the most challenging things about producing vaccines is really getting it registered and approved. So if you're doing it in Africa, and the African Medicine Agency will take on your application, and if it is approved, you can sell it to every country in Africa rather than submitting 54 different applications to 54 different countries. This has already been done for vaccines anyway, and I think Dr. Immunization will expatiate a bit more on that. So that, in summary, is the thing that compels that we go ahead and make a move towards setting up industrial vaccine production locally in Nigeria. But to make it work, we need to think collaboration. CBN providing money, we need to talk to them. NAFDAC, needs to help a lot. NAFDAC, I'm not aware, is already at maturity level that allows them to. I'm finishing in 1 minute. That allows them to. That's maturity level 3. That allows them to approve vaccine labs. But like I said, we need that, and I hope Mrs. Immunization will give us a timeline. And I also want to say that my position in the FIP will also help. I'm in touch with expertise all over the world at every level of vaccine production, people who can call up and say, look, we're putting a team together to set up a lab in Nigeria. And lawyers are also very, very important because every stage of the process can be, codified as intellectual property, and we can use that to negotiate with all manner of providers. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope it's been my presentation will be most useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much from Sholari. We are grateful for your presentation as you have given us a global perspective and even those things that we were not expecting you gave us. Your questions from the audience will be taken after the third presenter has given, so that we can take everything at once. Next on the line is our regulation and regulatory affairs director, Dr. Monica Emunjeze. She's the director for NAFDAC. I'm sure she was well introduced. Our role is to let us have the regulatory perspective and those things that we need to do that to keep in line with the regulations, not just for Nigeria, but for West Africa and the world in general. Madam, you have 15 minutes, but I know that with your antecedent and my experience with you, you will do justice to it.
Okay.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to speak today. I want to congratulate the organizers. Let me follow in Shola's footsteps and especially recognize Mr. Niyo Yeipo. We were under his tutelage in Glaxo in those days. So recognize every other person and jump straight into it. Shola has laid a very good foundation, as did Mr. Ladapo, but as has been said, I'll take it from a regulatory perspective, because when you look at vaccines and the vaccine ecosystem, we talk about the 6 critical functions that must be elaborated, frameworks that must be in place to speak to the quality, safety, and efficacy of the products. So we're talking about vaccines, but a very critical part of that is the regulatory component. And as I said, there are 6 critical control functions that for us as regulators that we look at when we talk about regulation of vaccines with a view to ensure quality, safety, and efficacy. You have to make sure that you address quality issues, vaccine safety, and vaccine efficacy, whilst you're also talking about production. The first thing I'll talk a little bit about is registration or licensing. I guess that's what many people are very familiar with. You have to license a product, but that presupposes that you have the data set for the vaccine candidates. There are certain data sets that must be provided to show that the vaccine meets set international norms and standards, and these are global requirements, as has been mentioned here before. So just summarizing, if you want to produce a vaccine, that presupposes that you have the capacity to demonstrate by way of documents, that your vaccine meets the set standards. You also have the issue about inspection, where the regulatory agency has the capacity to carry out good manufacturing practice inspection of the facilities to ensure compliance, again, with specific requirements. As you know, vaccines are biologicals. That has been said. This is a professional group, so we don't need to go into that detail, but there are minimal expectations of a facility producing biologics, producing vaccines, and the agency must have that framework in place to be able to carry out inspections and ensure compliance. Then again, we look at the laboratory testing. Many of you know that NAFDAC has labs. We do have a national control lab that handles the biologics, so that is also in place. And we have the capacity to do lot release, which is another critical control function as designated by the WHO. Clinical evaluation, which would go across the product development spectrum, where you're looking at the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. You must have a framework in place that ensures that you can conduct that evaluation, approve protocols for clinical trials to demonstrate safety and efficacy. And last but not least, you must have a post-marketing system in place, which will make sure that you have risk management plans in place. You have a system in place that would detect adverse events following immunization. And so once you have those 6 critical functions taken into account, you have a life cycle approach to the regulation of vaccines. So that is something that is very critical, and that is something that already exists within NAFDAC. We've continued to work to strengthen that and make sure that we do our best to comply. Right now, as we speak, there is currently no active vaccine manufacturer in country, but as been said, and I know Mr. Ernest is on the call, he will speak to the plans and what is coming up as regards the vaccines. But we have our vaccine committee, which has been in place and works to assure that these critical control functions are alive and continue to be strengthened so that by the time we get into the production of vaccines in country again, we have a robust regulatory framework in place, which will assure of the quality, safety, and efficacy of those products coming out of the facility. Shola alluded to the maturity levels, which is the WHO global benchmarking tool, which we're actively working to. We're very, very close to the maturity level 3, and I will not give him a timeline, but suffice it to say that we're very, very alive to that responsibility, because most vaccines go into global procurement, global tenders, where you have a requirement for WHO pre-qualification of the products. And in order to do that, the vaccines must be produced in a jurisdiction where you have a regulatory agency with a maturity level of 3. Very functional, with quite a lot of effort is being done to make sure that we cover all those indices, and that work is ongoing as we speak now. There's also need to appreciate that when we talk about vaccine production, look at the regulatory and also on the industrial side, there are 2 basic things that really come to my mind: infrastructure and human resource. The infrastructure to support the vaccine regulation, as has been stated, there's a lot of innovation in this field. It's a very fast evolving field. So you need to make sure that there are competencies across the value chain for the vaccine. So for example, you produce a vaccine, but we have to remember that there's need to have logistical frameworks in place to support that. The cold chain requirements are there. That's an opportunity for us to get ready with all those frameworks. You need to have the clinical research organizations in place, because there's quite a bit of work that continues through production and even when you have the product on the market. So you have to have those competencies developed, those frameworks in place, and it provides an opportunity for pharmacists to key in and begin to prepare so that by the time you're actually going into full production of vaccines, you have already certain things that you have put together to support that infrastructure. Again, you know, the fast pace of the technology, the disruptive innovations in this space make it such that to remain functional and effective in this space, you must continue to be dynamic and to evolve. Yes, we have a large pool of science grads, but when you talk about vaccine regulation, there are specific competencies which we need to make sure that we encourage people to develop at this time so that they will be able to function effectively and support the vaccine production quest that we have for Nigeria and hopefully enable us meet that target. I'm not too sure that there needs to be too much of a discussion as to whether we need it or not. There is definitely need to have vaccine security. And so it is something that we really need to go back to see how we can support the private sector collaborating with government where necessary to put these things in place so that we can produce vaccines to meet international needs where we need to. But being mindful that in order to do that, you must make sure that you are able to comply with the regulatory requirements, which are global norms and expectations, and be able to demonstrate quality, safety, and efficacy of those products. Definitely, there's going to be need for a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of R&D that needs to be funded. And I guess when you talk about production, whether of vaccines or of any other thing, there's a large funding component that needs to be addressed. We need to support those who are doing the R&D, research and development. Those are in the institutions. They need to be strengthened and encouraged. They need to be strengthened and encouraged so that the research and development moves into the pilot and scale up production in the facilities, and we end up with products that will meet our needs. But developing those competencies, strengthening the frameworks is very, very critical. Collaboration is very, very key. And it might be nice for us to begin to look and see where the capacities do exist. For example, we talk about production, and when you're looking at vaccine facilities, there are certain skill sets that are necessary to be able to function. If you're doing technology transfer, whatever it is, you have to have people who are grounded in certain areas. We're talking about quality management systems, you're talking about GMP. Yes, on the regulatory side, we're working on that, but we tend to be guiding a lot on the other end, but there is a need also for that area to be strengthened, where you have people that have a full understanding of what it needs, what it takes to support technology transfer, if that would be the case, and make sure that these products actually meet the expectations, they remain of good quality, they are safe and effective. Again, I'll speak a little bit about the CRO part. I don't know that the pharmacists are very, very active in the CRO space right now. That is a space that we will need to look at. As I said, we have the framework to do the regulation for the clinical trials, but we need a lot more players in that space so that you'll be able to key into the opportunities that will present themselves very, very shortly as we move to roll out into the vaccine manufacturing space. I think I will end it there unless you want me to go into more detail. I don't want to speak too much. I think it's more questions and interactions, but that would basically be my contributions to the discussion at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Munjiti, for looking at issues from the regulatory perspective for vaccine manufacture in Nigeria. I believe strongly at this junction, we have the that is the Biovaccine Nigeria Limited. The company is going to have more information. We have gotten the perspective of the international and international basis, how quickly we can start manufacturing, what are the challenges, what we need to do, and the big business in vaccine manufacture. We have had the position of the that is Dr. Munjiti in Nigeria. To give us what is the status of vaccine production, is government came on board with this partnership, and what are the things that Nigeria should be looking at, and what are the things that are being done in-house in a way to ensure that biovaccine Nigeria is also a big stakeholder in the current COVID-19 vaccine production. You have the floor now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I would also want to join the earlier speakers in thanking the organizers of this platform. It is indeed a conversation whose time has come, especially as the world continues to reel under the scourge of COVID-19. Again, I want to thank the two earlier speakers. They've made my job very easy, especially from Solari, who gave a very rounded background of vaccine manufacturing. So I'll just basically be telling us about the Nigeria effort at local vaccine manufacturing. Of course, to Mr. Ladapo, thank you for that wonderful background of historical background of vaccine manufacturing in Nigeria. So, like you said, the Minister for Health, Professor Adewale, announced the joint venture. This was in 2018. That was when the board for biovaccines was re-inaugurated. However, the incorporation of biovaccines actually dates back to 2005. But thanks to this present government, who saw the need to pay attention to that part of our country pursuing health, and what's it called? The Federal Executive Council revalidated the joint venture agreement, which led to the board being re-inaugurated in early 2018, January 2018 precisely, and that was what led to the announcement by the minister. Okay, so post-inauguration, the minister again announced that in 3 years, the country was going to manufacture its first vaccine. Indeed, that was according to the plan that biovaccines had at the time, which, of course, as soon as the board was inaugurated, the first task of the board was to approve the business plan. Now, for those of us who do not know, biovaccines is a joint venture company, a special purpose vehicle to revive local vaccine manufacturing in Nigeria. It is owned 49% by the federal government of Nigeria and 51% by Mozambique. And the Mozambique ownership is basically to allow this very sensitive function to be driven by the private sector. Okay, so post approval of the business plan, of course, the business plan is based on a strategy which we had captioned NICE, basically Nigeria Immunization Coverage Enhancement Initiative. This is based on 5 pillars, which we felt would address this problem, not just for today, but on a sustainable basis. So of course, the first is infrastructure, like Dr. Aimunde spoke about, infrastructure for capacity building for local manufacturing of essential vaccine. That's the first pillar. The second is, again, infrastructure for development of novel vaccine that are critical to the region. The earlier speaker has spoken about the yearly outbreak of Lassa fever. We have Ebola with us, and a couple of them, which are Africa specific. Some are Nigeria specific, actually, like you mentioned, the monkeypox, which is not of sufficient commercial interest to any big pharma. So if that challenge is going to be addressed, then it has to be addressed by Nigeria. The third is on institution support to enhance awareness and coverage for EPI vaccines in Nigeria. Of course, the fourth is support the National Control Lab and strengthening of the NRA to make it a fully functional entity. Then the fifth, which again is a major gap that was identified and the strategy tried to address it. The fifth pillar is a forum to nurture and develop local talents to support the capacity building initiative. Of course, like the earlier speakers have spoken, vaccine manufacturing in Nigeria is a no-brainer. Indeed, in the list of the top 10 most populous countries in the world, Nigeria currently ranks number 7. And on that list, Nigeria is the only that currently does not manufacture vaccines locally. So why should Nigeria manufacture vaccines? Of course, I'll be preaching to the choir if I told us that first, it allows for better control of immunization supplies. I mean, we've spoken about national security concerns. It helps us to reduce dependency. And what is more, there is some level of sustainability. You cannot rule out donor fatigue. And if you also consider the time we stand pandemic preparedness, if we have this capacity locally, then it will be possible to prepare for future pandemics. COVID-19 is the first we've seen. We don't know which ones would come up in the future. Then the capacity to manufacture vaccines locally would, of course, enable us to develop talent to address what's called diseases that are endemic to us or that are specific to us. There is currently a shifting disease burden, whilst in the developed countries it is more of non-communicable diseases. Here it is still largely communicable diseases. Nigeria has a large and rapidly growing population, and as they say, prevention is better than cure. If we have this, we'll be thinking long term rather than short, quick fixes where you would go to a facility to ask for supplies, and of course they'll give you a time into the future to get the supplies. Developing this capacity would help us develop expertise in translational sciences. Of course, this would help us get into other related industries. Of course, it will create jobs. Currently, Africa, let me not limit it to Nigeria, Africa imports 99% of her vaccines. With local capacity, like Pharmacists already spoke earlier, it will reduce and help us conserve forex and reduce our economic stroke trade deficit. Then the other part is that vaccine manufacturing is indeed profitable if done properly and if all the factors are properly aligned. And what is more, there is the confidence building part, which enables us as a country to mature into solving other problems. I'd want to paint a picture. I think at the advent of the Olympics, when the Zika virus broke out in Brazil, I mean, it was a local issue for Brazil, but Brazil had technology or know-how to develop vaccines, and they quickly nipped it in the bud. Okay, of course, that's another argument to support the need for local vaccine manufacturing for a population as big as ours. So back to the bio-vaccine strategy. Of course, at the back of this strategy is a business model that is sustainable. So we're looking at running it as a business, return on investments, and turnaround time. We're looking at products that are of priority status to Nigeria and the region. Of course, demand and supply, global demand and supply gaps, especially as it pertains to Nigeria. We're looking at a facility that is also competitive cost-wise globally. Because even though most of the vaccines that are of interest to us, the vaccines that are in the Nigeria's childhood immunization program, a lot of them are under $1 a dose, okay? But then you still need to be competitive. So we're looking at running campaigns instead of having a dedicated facility, just so that you have a number of products coming out of your facility and reduces the unit cost. So some level of economy of scale, which a large birth cohort of 7 million babies annually is likely helping us to attain. And of course, we're looking at conventional manufacturing platform against the older ones, like the egg-based one. So in the partnership, government's contribution is land. That's the old federal vaccine production facility, which was shut down in 1991 for upgrade. Okay, we had done a detailed assessment, and of course, what was being manufactured in this facility is yellow fever. So it's a single product facility. So the board, after this strategy, decided to buy a 15.3 hectares piece of property where a green field will be developed. So there is now a rolling plan to start local field finish in Nigeria by 2024. Okay. The approach to vaccine manufacturing, Pharmacists has spoken earlier to approach. Of course, there are several approaches, but then, like I said, our approach is to run this as a business. So we have adopted what is called a stage-wise backward integration. And this is also deliberate because there are lots of gaps. We currently do not have the manpower to run this facility. So the plan is to develop technical manpower as we go along. So you start from the least complicated part of the process to the more complicated part. So the plan is to build a facility which is compliant to the most stringent regulatory requirements, one that is scalable, flexible, and allows for future expansion. So the plan is to build a 300 million doses per annum facility. Of course, this is looking forward into as our population grow and as our needs grow. Okay, so a facility will be able to manufacture 350 million doses per annum. Okay, so critical success factors. Sorry, I missed out earlier when I was talking about the approval by government. That's inauguration of the board. After the board approved a business plan, of course, the first challenge we had was in June of that year, that was in 2018, we learned about the Gavi transition, or rather the extension of the Gavi transition. Of course, Nigeria is a Gavi transitioning country. What that means is that currently Nigeria is able to procure some of our vaccines through Gavi subsidy. So, but the plan at the time was that come 2021, Nigeria was going to graduate fully off Gavi. And the initial business plan of biovaccines was based on that plan. So when in June 2018, the announcement of the Gavi extension came, of course, immediately threw the business plan under a bus. I specifically mentioned this because I'm going to talk about it again as I harp on the critical success factors. So we had to go back to government to, of course, get the details of the revised transition plan. And based on that, went back to the drawing board to do another plan. At this juncture, I must also appreciate the effort of the current Minister for Health. It's been very supportive, the team at the MPHCDA. Indeed, for this to succeed, it has to be a countrywide project. So the first critical success factor is stakeholder alignment. So this brings me to, again, what Famladapo said earlier about the announcement by the current Minister for Health about a 10 billion naira to support local vaccine manufacturing. Of course, what followed after that announcement was that the National Assembly stopped that spending. And also, not too long ago, they came on oversight visits to our facility here in Lagos to indeed find out what BioVaccines is doing. So we're hopeful that they would also align just so that this project moves apace. The next is regulatory certification, which Dr. Imunjeze has spoken about, market access stroke long-term procurement commitment. Like Pharmacists said, the vaccine space is different. They are very limited off-takers. If you're not talking to governments, you're talking to UNICEF or the PAHO or a few self-procuring countries. And more often than not, people pay in advance for this procurement. The other is technology partnership. And this is important, particularly for a case as ours, where the major focus of the joint venture is to address the childhood immunization needs. So it means products in focus are the childhood immunization vaccines. Like I said, a lot of them are old, currently less than $1 a dose. So there won't be any point reinventing the wheel to manufacture those vaccines. Rather, you would seek partnerships to, what's the word, cut down the process and ensure that, I mean, you would replicate more like a handshake, build a facility that replicates like for like the technology that exists in this other facility. That way you wouldn't need to do the extensive clinical trial, which will of course take the production costs out of the roof. Okay. So the other part is that vaccine manufacturing is cost intensive. For a project as big as this. We're looking for $40 to $50 million, which we're currently talking to specific funders, developmental banks, developmental institutions. Currently, the Board of Biovaccine, in consonance with the plan, has approved for the design construction company. So currently the design for this ultra modern facility is underway. And in a nutshell, that's where we are. What are the challenges? Of course, the challenges are the rapidly changing immunization landscape, which alignment of all the key holders, stakeholders, as well as some market commitment, advanced market commitments would help address. Funding, of course, we've developed a clear and inclusive model that makes it easy to attract funding partners. Technical talent, like I said, training and development to be an integral part of the project starts with the least complicated parts and progress to the more complicated parts. Then, of course, what is most important is stakeholder alignment, ensuring that as a country, we're pulling in one direction to ensure that this becomes a reality. I think I'll stop here. If there are questions, I'll take. Thank you.
Thank you, Pharmacists, careful for extensive elaboration of the situation with vaccines and what we had locally. It's time for question and answers, and we have earlier said people should post their questions on the chat. So I will start with the questions that were set, and the speaker that is responsible will please answer those questions. The first question I have here is from Marcel Chemeka, who asked that, do we have plan for COVID vaccines manufacturing in Nigeria? I think that one is a self-answered question. In the discussion of the last speaker, about vaccines has plan, and they have told us of the plan, and the plans are a bit detailed for us to see. The second one is to Dr. Monica. The person asked, is the same person who said, do NAFDAC test the present COVID vaccines being administered to Nigerians in any way? to monitor the effectiveness and side effects of such vaccines? Dr. Monica, I
Yes,
think you
Richard.
can.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you for the question.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Well, let me answer it in two ways. Effectiveness and side effects. There's no testing that you will do other than clinical that will address those issues. So what we have in place is a robust system to capture any side effects or any adverse reactions. We have an app that has been deployed so that we are collating the data, and it's been pretty well subscribed, and people are posting their experiences with the vaccine so that when they have side effects, they are reporting, and we've had good reportage with that. So I guess that's the way I'll answer that. You can't test for side effects, if you understand what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question is from Mr. Olatunja Remo. It said, as at February 2021, there are over 350 vaccine candidates at various stages of R&D. Please, I want to know whether to date there are anyone specifically from Nigeria. I think Dr. Monica is the best to answer this question.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Ernest would say something. I believe there's a group of researchers. I think, Ernest, can you add to that? I believe they're in Osun. I stand corrected.
As a matter of fact, there are a couple of them. The Osun one you mentioned, I'm also aware Professor Happy at the Redeemers University and his team are also working on a novel candidate for COVID-19 vaccine. So yes, there are a couple of them, but you know, these are largely clinical stages. They will still have to do extensive clinical trial.
Thank you, sir. The next question I think has been answered, but I'll still read the question. Recently, federal government gave out grants to some Nigerians for vaccine production. Is BioVaccines Nigeria Limited a recipient of the grants, even with their 49% stake in the company?
Okay, so I would answer that. So 49 stake of government is equity. Okay, for people who understand business, no company runs on equity. You still have to attract funding, or rather develop a proper capital structure, decide on the right capital structure to run a company. So the 10 billion actually was allocated to BioVaccine, but like I shared earlier, the National Assembly immediately halted the minister from spending the money. So we're currently waiting for the response from the National Assembly team that visited us on oversight, to also give their go-ahead for government to release that money.
Okay, thank you. The next question is also for you. The person asked, Maureen Kajo, what is the communication plan of the organization?
Okay, so as a matter of fact, this spoke to something I wanted to speak to earlier. We had developed an advocacy material titled One Nation, One Voice, One Commitment. Okay, but however, the last a year and a half has been unprecedented. Nobody saw COVID-19 coming. First, it locked us up and it disrupted a lot of plans, slowed down a lot of things. People are not able to travel, but we're trying to make the most we can of the current situation. So yes, there is a communication plan, but then there is no perfect plan. Any plan can be improved upon. So if there is any contribution the fellow has, of course, our doors are open. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is the last of the questions raised on the platform. I would like to give maybe a chance to people that can verbally ask. So I will ask people to raise their hands. We can only take 3 because of the time that is left. So if anybody wants to ask a question verbally, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand on the Zoom platform. Then I will call on you to ask. If there is none, if there are no more questions, then I will call on Pharmacist Onedo to give us a summary of the discussion so that we can gradually come to the end of the program.
Thank you very much.
No. It's not clear on my side.
It's not clear on my side too.
Then
Your network.
We can't hear you.
Then secondly, the question just came in. Do we attend to that before she comes back fully?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Let me read out the question. The question is from Dr. Ojo. I think it must be Dr. Lolu Ojo. The person said, different phases of clinical trials will precede vaccine production. How can NAFDAC encourage pharmacists to take up the clinical trial space, which should complement plans for indigenous production? Development of contract research organizations and the complement competencies. Then this question is for Dr. Monica.
Yeah, Richard, thank you very much. Thank you, Lolu. I think I threw that out there. I don't know why he's throwing it back to me. But what would I say? You see, there's an ecosystem that supports vaccine production. And it's a very large ecosystem. There's the clinical part. So how do we encourage you? Just like I put out the call, you have to have interest in that space, and you have to go out of your way to develop the expertise and competence in that area. So by making that call here, I feel that is the encouragement we could say, because other than that, it will be hard. We participate in different things. And a lot of times you don't see a lot of pharmacists on the clinical end. You will see more in the logistics, which is also still very good, the supply chain. Supply chain is really huge around vaccines. So whether they're produced locally or coming from wherever, there's the cold chain and the supply chain logistics. And I know a lot of colleagues are getting into that area. Those are part of the ecosystem that will support the vaccine production, because it doesn't just end there. I also mentioned the issue of post-marketing surveillance. And when you're talking about monitoring for ADRs, or you're doing phase 4 trials, that is still an area that pharmacists can get interested, build capacity, and see where they can key in that vaccine ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monica, for that answer. I'm waiting for other people with questions. Like I said, 3 more questions and we're done. So please, if you have questions, just raise your hand on the chat and I will call on you to unmute and ask your question.
From the way things are, I need to really call on the academic to give us a wrap-up. That is what we have actually engagement, because from the way we are really talking extensively, and let us have some more
thank you. Sorry, I have a correction to make. The person that asked the first, that's on the issue of development of CROs and complement competencies is not Dr. Lulujo. It's actually Dr. Oluwatoyin Ojo. Sorry for the error on my side. I will now call on Pharmacist Foluke Akinwande to wrap up of the program. Now you have the floor.
Yes, good evening, everyone. It's been a very, very interesting session. In fact, very down to earth speakers in their presentation. Easy to follow narratives. I want to thank all our guest speakers. They have spoken very well. And our pharmacist, Ladapo, was able to give us a very clear understanding of the historical background of vaccine. Very enlightening to know that since 1952, we've been on this case of vaccine manufacturer in Nigeria. And as at 1987, we were producing about 1.2 million doses annually. That was very interesting to follow. And the fact
That all seems to have taken out the current speaker. Well, I don't know whether she will be able to come back. Okay, I think she's back.
I'm going to have to take away the video.
Okay.
So we had the joint venture with Mayor and Baker and the federal government of Nigeria, and then the global perspective that was given by International, and then the encouragement. In fact, what I picked from his presentation is the fact that he's able to, by virtue of his position with FIP, is able to help, at any stage, help Nigeria liaise with international, global, in assistance, to setting up, everything we need locally. And the fact that it will be economical for Nigeria to do these vaccines locally. Then we will not have to be doling out or owing forex and be more in debt. And then also this global fatigue that can set in if international have to keep sending us vaccine as a very populous country. Nobody can be able to cater for our needs unless we start looking inwards to help ourselves. And the fact that collaboration that is needed, we're going to need financial collaboration with CBN, with NAFDAC, even lawyers, because every level of our setup can be, have to be, looked through legally. Competency. Now, Dr. Monica was also able to give us the regulatory perspective of vaccine production. And it was interesting and down to earth to learn of the regulatory aspects. And one thing I was able to zoom in from her presentation is the fact that there's a vaccine committee already in place at NAFDAC, and it's at an advanced stage. The Nigerian efforts, the Nigerian effort has been dated back from January 2018, with biovaccine. And then that was given to us by the next speaker. But in all, I want to thank everyone because it's especially because this NAFAM Nigerian Academy of Pharmacy had a week-long program on this issue of COVID-19 vaccine and all the issues surrounding it. And then for Pharmacy Affairs to now have this to cap it, you know, it's a very good outing. And the speakers chosen have been wonderful. So I want to just say that, you know, we were told that we're not going to be gunning for a minimum of 300 million doses of vaccine per year. So that we will not, because what we had before was extremely suboptimal. So with 300 million doses, the Gavi extension in 2016 will not be needed once we start making local manufacture of vaccine as a business. And also the fact that we've purchased about 15 hectares of land, you know, to be able to carry out this venture, you know, and build the facility in compliance with standards, you know, and then also the fact that even though the manpower is not yet on ground, that they were going to start with, we're starting with the area of least resistance and then working upwards as needed. This has been very wonderful discussion. I want to thank all our speakers. I want to thank everyone on Pharmacy Affairs platform who are taking time out to learn more and increase their knowledge. It's not it's someone that does not continue to be curious or acquire knowledge. According to how God has constituted the brain cells will die. The brain cells get developed more and more as we expand it in knowledge. So I want to encourage us to continue, not to be tired of seeking out this knowledge, especially with areas that affect our well-being as a nation. So on that note, I believe that it's been a good outing, and all the other, you know, flesh to discussion will be given to us after this program. I thank you all. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Afternoon, Dr. Immunization also appreciate you careful. Thank you so much. I've learned so much into this afternoon. And to all members on the platform tonight, in the Board of Affairs,
We can hear you clearly.
Yeah, the network is really messy.
Yeah, your network is bad though.
who have been here, Lord, we want to say thank you. Every time we get up together, we share the we begin with another topical issue, which I believe is going to be
Oh, we can't hear you at all.
I think we can't hear the chairman.
Yes.
So I think on these notes,
Let me just let us thank everybody. You have spoken very well. Your papers will be put together. The essence of the Pharmacy Affairs platform is for us to bring issues to the hearing of the government and all the necessary bodies. And it is not, our gathering will not be for nothing, because they will hear. The more they hear on these issues, the more, you know, things will be set and put in place. I thank God. I thank NAFTA for all their efforts, because, you know, they're always willing to come out and share this knowledge with the public. And I thank Shola Ari also, because, you know, he was that platform, and the willingness. No, not sure. Yes. So the sense of us improving is to try. When we can know where we are, then the plan in place. So on that note, I think we should say the closing prayer. If there's nothing else, there's no other questions on the platform. I think the network, always chooses to do what it wants whenever we don't want it to. So let us pray. Father God, we just thank you for another opportunity to deep dive into some issues that affect us as a nation. We thank you for all our speakers, for all their respective roles on the issues of vaccine production in Nigeria and globally. We thank you for the nation. The more we gather in your name, we know that you are with us. We thank you for this day. We say that everyone will continue to prosper in each of their chosen fields. We say that nobody will be ravaged by any pandemic or any sickness. We say that in your name, you shall continue to be with us. Father, thank you for those that were on this platform and those that were not able to join. As a nation, we commit ourselves to you, that you continue to take preeminence, all to the glory and honor of your name. In Jesus' mighty name, we have prayed. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes. You have a good week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.